Today I want to talk a little bit about sound bites, interviews and sound bites. One of the really essential parts of a news story, and if you use them well, they add a lot to what you're trying to do. First of all, sound bites give authenticity to a story. You're getting the person themselves, the people involved, or perhaps experts who understand what's happening. You're getting their comments, their opinions, and it's not just the reporter saying this is what happened. So that's good. You get authenticity from sound bites. Another thing you can get from sound bites is balance. Sound bites give you an opportunity, interview bites give you an opportunity to get both sides or multiple sides of a story. You can get someone who's for what's ever happening and somebody who's against it, and it provides balance to the story. The viewer feels that you're being more objective as you present your topic when you use opposing or at least different kinds of sound bites from different perspectives. Thirdly, sound bites allow you to get emotion, perspective. When people are upset or when people are excited, when that emotion comes through, it adds something very powerful to a story. And then, of course, you're adding variety to a story. Even just the audio, when you're hearing the narration, the reporter's voice, and then all of a sudden you hear a different voice, your ear kind of snaps to attention. And it helps to add variety. It helps the pacing of the story if you distribute the sound bites correctly. Those are some of the things that sound bites do for a story, and that's why in all of our stories, as much as possible, we try to include interview sound bites. I'm going to ask, I've asked Dale Hurd, one of our star reporters here at CBN News, to make a few comments as well from his tremendous experience. He's been reporting the news in difficult places, including the Soviet Union in 1990-91 when it was falling apart. He's been in places like that. He's reported in Europe, he's reported in Venezuela. He's done news for a long time. He's got a great feel for a good interview and how to use sound bites. So I'm going to have Dale make a few comments just a little bit later on. One of the things about sound bites is that because of a number of changes in society, our let's say tolerance or our acceptance of sound bites has changed over time. It used to be that we could listen very easily to a sound bite that was 40 seconds long, or 30 or 40, or maybe even more. In fact, one story that I'm going to run for you right here from NPR says that the average soundbite length right now is 9 seconds. About 1968, it was 43 seconds, and now it's down to about 9. So let's listen to that story.
As Congressman Darrell Issa prepared to take over a powerful House committee, he delivered a message on Fox News Sunday.
Set aside for a moment the substance of what you're about to hear the congressman say and consider how long it takes him to say it.
The sooner the administration figures out that the enemy is the bureaucracy and the wasteful spending, not the other party, the better off we'll be.
That took a little under 9 seconds, which means it's the average length of a soundbite in broadcast news stories.
It's been this way since at least 1992, when a University of California professor found that TV networks were broadcasting fewer politicians' words.
What he discovered was that the length of political sound bites shrank from 43 seconds in 1968 all the way down to 9 seconds in 1988.
Craig Fairman reviewed the history of the shrinking soundbite in the Boston Globe this week.
CBS decided that they were going to unveil a new policy for their coverage of the 1992 presidential campaign. And that was going to be that no soundbite, no matter how pithy or profound it was going to run unless it lasted at least 30 seconds.
Al Gore is a leading expert in foreign policy, national security, and arms control.
That's Bill Clinton speaking during the 1992 campaign. He had no trouble filling extra time, but many candidates had learned to keep their thoughts very, very short, as CBS soon realized.
What they quickly found was that they had to keep throwing out sound bites that simply weren't long enough. This actually led to less of the candidates talking on the air and more paraphrase from journalists. There were so many things that would have to change for 30-second sound bites to work that the experiment quickly failed.
And today, sound bites remain very short. Not long ago, the satirical newspaper The Onion mocked the 24-second news cycle. Politicians have adapted by choosing a few words that convey the strongest possible meanings in 9 seconds or less.
Instead of drilling for oil, exploring for energy. Instead of healthcare reform, the government takeover of healthcare.
Republican pollster Frank Luntz advises politicians to use phrases that in effect try to win the argument without taking the time for argument.
To be perfectly candid, I've made a very nice living out of creating sound bites. But as an academic, a professor, and an author, I really wish that we had more time, more information, more discussion, and less sound bites.
There is one significant development in recent years. Online platforms like YouTube and Twitter allow politicians to reach the public directly. Of course, tweets are limited to 140 characters, words that would take about 9 seconds to say.
I found that report on NPR, it actually ran a couple of years ago, to be absolutely fascinating. I don't know what you think the cause for the shortening soundbite might be. I'm thinking perhaps our attention span is getting shorter as a society. We're more in a hurry to see things, to have change, to have variety. Another thing may be that there's so much competition. There's the media, there's all kinds of media. You yourself probably have been in a situation, maybe often are, where you have about 3 screens going or maybe 4 screens going at the same time. You've got your desktop computer, you've got an iPad, and then you've got your cell phone. And all of these things can be going at once, so your attention span is affected by that. And so whatever the reason is, we have to understand that there's less tolerance for a long soundbite, and be sure to adjust to what the audience can tolerate or what the audience can best handle. Okay, now let's have Dale Hurd share with us. He's got some great perspective on how to use interview sound bites.
What I do is I log all my sound bites, which is common sense, and then you're looking at your sound bites, and of course you want an excuse to use the best comments, and sometimes they're not at the core of the story, but they're compelling for some reason, and sometimes it's like a puzzle. I'm looking at my typed out sound bites on Word, and I'm looking at them, and it's like you're looking for a pattern. It's almost like a puzzle. You're looking, boy, I want to use that, and I want to use that, and I kind of wait for a story to form in my brain. It was asked, how soon you should introduce sound in your story, and you should introduce it as soon as possible. But sometimes it's not possible because of the type of story it is. The most important thing at the beginning of a story is to establish a contract with the audience so that they essentially agree to watch your story. It's fairly easy to do because they don't have to give you any money. All they have to do is say, okay, to themselves, I'll watch this. So that's why the beginning is so important. And you wouldn't introduce sound just to introduce it. It's whatever gives you the strongest open to your story. You really have to have a cutthroat approach to your story. There are journalistic principles, and there is simply writing a good story that needs to be written. But if very few people watch the story because it's not appealing, you've sort of torpedoed yourself. So it's very important that it's compelling, and that it's compelling at the beginning. Not so much in the middle, because there's something about the audience. They agree to watch it at the beginning. Then they'll stay with you unless it gets really bad, and then they'll dump out. So But I think the Stan was asking me about sound, and I gave him a story that I liked, the use of sound. It was actually about a Hungarian anti-Semite who discovered he was Jewish. And that story is what I call a chronological approach, because you have to actually tell the main points in his journey from being an anti-Semite to learning he's a Jew and no longer being an anti-Semite.
Here's the story that Dale was talking about. Take a look.
He was once a rising star in one of Hungary's largest and most controversial political parties, Jobbik. Jobbik has been labeled fascist and anti-Semitic. Csanád Szegedy, still in his 20s, was on a trajectory to lead this party someday.
I joined Jobbik in 2003 when the party foundations were being built. I was a member for 9 years. I was vice president for 6 years and in the European Parliament since 2009.
Szegedy has also been branded an anti-Semite, although in our interview he disagreed.
When I entered Jobbik, I was kind of indifferent toward Jews. I didn't care about Jews. I didn't care about the Holocaust. I didn't consider the Holocaust as a tragedy for the Hungarian people. I read a lot of anti-Semitic literature.
Still, Szegedy was a leader of a party almost universally labeled anti-Semitic, and his public statements showed that at the very least, he still didn't like Jews and was suspicious of them. But that would all change when Csanád Szegedy would learn something about himself that turned his world upside down. Csanád Szegedy was a Jew. Rumors had begun swirling on the internet that Szegedy had Jewish roots, so he went to talk with his 94-year-old grandmother, who had never said she was Jewish.
And she opened up and she talked about her life and how she was sent to Auschwitz and how our whole family was annihilated.
How did this change your view of the Holocaust?
I was shocked. First of all, because I realized the Holocaust really happened.
Not sure what he should do next, he first tried to hide his Jewishness and act like nothing had happened, but eventually realized he could not stay in Jobbik.
I realized I can't take part in any organization that has anything to do with anti-Semitism. And after my Jewish origins were disclosed, they really didn't want to see me in the party.
So what do you do when you discover that you are one of the very things that you hated? For Csanád Szegedy, you change.
Szegedy contacted local rabbi Shlomo Koves, who first thought it was a joke.
When we met first with Csanád, I had a very mixed feelings because from one hand, I was sitting across somebody that was seen for years as one of the main figures of the Jobbik party. From the other hand, I was sitting across a person, a broken person who has realized what he has done and who has become to a situation where he figured he has to change, but he still doesn't know how to change.
Csanád started attending synagogue and admits that at first some members treated him like a leper.
It was very interesting to see how other people look at it, and on one hand they took a step back and they were shocked.
And would literally leave the synagogue when he walked in. But some befriended him and he started taking classes at the synagogue, learning Hebrew and the meaning of kosher and Shabbat.
How much of your life has changed since you learned that you're a Jew?
It's changed everything. It's like being reborn, and the changes in my life are still happening. I had this value system until I was 30, and I had to admit that it was all wrong and had to find the will to change.
He also became a politician without a party, but has continued to serve in the European Parliament as an independent.
As a politician, I now want to defend human rights for everyone. I am aware of my responsibility, and I know I will have to make it right in the future.
One of the high points of his new life was traveling this year to Israel with his wife and visiting the Holocaust Museum and the Wailing Wall.
When I landed in Israel, airport security asked me a lot of questions. And when the guard asked me, "Are you a Jew?" then for the first time in my life, I could say, Yes.
What has it been like learning how to be Jewish?
Just to feel like you're on the right way spiritually and you can get closer to God, it's a whole new feeling for me that I'm doing the right thing. My life has been full of incredible miracles, but I believe everyone who chooses the way of God sees miracles.
Dale Hurd, CBN News in Budapest, Hungary.
Other stories, when you're not bound to a chronology, it becomes more of, what has the most sizzle. And so I'm looking at my list of sound bites and I'm putting asterisks by the ones that have the most feeling, that are sort of a gee whiz, like who would have thought that, or that are just sort of jaw-dropping. You want to find a way to use those, and often it comes in the rewrite, and which I firmly believe in re-editing your stories. First story out the chute is never your best story, and but get something together and watch it, and I think ideas start to percolate as you watch the story and you see how you'll rework it. You almost have to, and this is why, journalism is almost like carpentry, or it's like a trade. You learn by doing. You have to develop a musical ear except for the story. You have to have a sense of what's going to give this story the right rhythm. And you really only get that by doing, by trying, practicing. Because I don't think there is a hard and fast rule about where you would use sound, but it's you watch a really good movie. Why did they edit it that way? Pay attention to the way things that are really good, not just news, are edited, and why do you keep watching? Because it has to do with sort of the rhythm. It has to do with attention span. It has to do with human behavior and learning what fascinates people. So good luck.
Well, I don't think I can improve on what Dale has shared. I'm very grateful to be working with such talented people. We sit side by side, and I get to overhear some of the stuff that he's doing on a daily basis. I hope this is helpful. Talk to you soon.